I am often in awe of the heroic efforts of mothers, specifically in this line of work, when it comes to the balance of daily life and chronic illness. Whether they are individuals with the illness, supporting someone they care about, or even grieving a loss, their perseverance and resiliency is nothing short of heroism. This month of May is a focus on mothers. Join me as we celebrate and hear from these incredible women the influence of chronic illness in their lives and the way they continue to comfort and nourish their families. Welcome to Wondercast, a community collaborative podcast supporting families balancing the complexities of chronic illness. Today, we hear from Holly Barrett, proud mom of 3, surviving with cancer, resilient, and so beautifully strong. This is her story.
I'm Holly Barrett, and I've lived in Central Texas for over 20 years now. I've been married to my husband for going on about 23 years now. We have 3 children, Grace, Sarah, and Rhett. I'm a nurse. I haven't worked full-time since I was diagnosed, which was back in 2013 was the first diagnosis. In my spare time, which is kind of a joke in a sense because I have 3 children, there is no spare time. But in my spare time, I like to garden and read and spend time with my family. COVID was actually kind of nice for me when everybody was home because everybody was home and I didn't have, there was no plans and I got to spend time with my people. I'm a Christian. My faith has been super important in this journey. So that's me.
We have a lot of things in common.
Yay.
It makes me happy. If you're comfortable, why don't you share a little bit about your cancer journey, just kind of what that entailed, maybe the first round and what treatments you were doing and how that's changed now?
Well, it kind of started, honestly, when I got pregnant with my son. He was my 3rd baby. I call him my bonus baby. We hadn't planned on having more than 2. I wanted more than 2, but, my husband didn't, and it was this whole thing. But God decided that we were going to have 3. He had a heart defect, we found out, when I was about 36 weeks pregnant. And they couldn't tell us exactly what it was because I was so far along. It was just one side of his heart was bigger than the other. And that was extremely stressful. He was born. He didn't have to have surgery or anything like that. And by the time he was 5, they said he'd outgrown it, which is, he had several holes in his heart. But I feel like the journey started then. I breastfed my daughters until they were 2. I was breastfeeding him. He was about 17 months old when I found a lump. I was 37 at the time, had no family history of any kind of cancer that I was aware of. And I massaged it for 2 months thinking I had a clogged milk duct. Being a nurse, I knew that if the lump would, get bigger, smaller, that it probably wasn't cancer. In hindsight, it was probably me filling with milk, that made it seem like the lump was getting bigger and smaller. But at the time, I had no reason to think otherwise. After 2 months of massaging it, and I had clogged ducts with my girls, my 2 older children, went to the OB. He thought the same thing. It's probably an abscess, just some old milk that got infected. Let's go ahead and get a mammogram. You're 37, you're close enough to 40, and had the mammogram, and my life changed forever. We just went ahead and I had a double mastectomy. Everything just moved fast after that. Double mastectomy. They didn't get clear margins. Ended up having positive nodes. I had invasive ductal, invasive lobular in situ. Is that how you say it? I'm probably saying it wrong. And ductal in situ.
Oh.
Yeah. So, the gamut, go big or go home, right? If you're going to have it, might as well just have 4 types.
And you were 37.
I was 37, no family history. Yep.
Wow.
And, I was in fairly good health. I was stressed, mom of 3. I homeschooled all 3 of my kids. I would work part-time jobs. I had a lot on my plate, but nothing, I don't know. It floored us. So I had the double mastectomy, started chemo before my son turned 2 years old. My kids at the time were 9, 5, and then, not quite 2 years old. Started chemo, had 8 rounds of chemo, the adriamycin cytoxin, or, the red devil, had the red devil, and then had dose dense Taxol. So a total of 8 infusions. Then I had 36 radiation treatments. 5 days a week for 6 weeks, I believe is, I don't know if that comes out to 36. Don't judge my math, but
I won't.
chemo brain is real. And the brain cells that my children didn't take from me, the chemo has taken the rest. But yeah, for 6 weeks, every 5 days a week, went to radiation, had to drive from San Marcos to South Austin for the radiation with three young kids. But there's blessings in that. We had great people. Oh, and they burnt my lung in radiation. So I had radiation pneumonitis. So I spent about
Oh,
6 months on 60 milligrams of prednisone and in and out of the hospital multiple times with that. Then in May of 2015, I went ahead and had a total hysterectomy and nephrectomy, since my cancer the first time around was estrogen and progesterone positive. This time around, it has mutated and it is triple negative. I was
oh.
in remission for 8 years. You know, the burning of the lung the first time around, or the radiation pneumonitis, was awful. I was in and out of the hospital, like I said, at least 10 times in 2014, 2015 with respiratory failure, pneumonia, all the prednisone stuff. I mean, it was bad. I'm sorry, I'll lose my train of thought occasionally too with the
That's
chemo
okay.
brain.
Yeah,
Sorry. So
you're
I was in
fine.
and out of the hospital. It was awful. It was horrible. And I feel so blessed now that they burnt my lung, because had they not burnt my lung, MD Anderson wouldn't have been scanning my chest. I had everything done up here. We went to MD Anderson in 2018 because my husband had said, "Hey, if it ever comes back, that this is where we want to be." So, foreshadowing. I hope not, but it they wouldn't have found it as soon as they did. So I feel, even though I am categorized, or staged at, say, stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, the survival rate for that, which is, you can Google it and find it, is 3 to 5 years. They found it before it went to bones or organs. This is what frustrates me, is that once you finish treatment for breast cancer, there's no follow-ups other than, I mean, there's no follow-up scans, there's no follow-up blood work. Unless you have a pain that won't go away, a new and worsening pain, or a cough that won't go away, they don't do anything. I feel so blessed that they burnt my lung, which sounds crazy, but there's blessings even in those hardships.
Well, it's just weird to think you're told all along that if you do the double mastectomy,
Mm-hmm.
or you have the chemo and radiation, or you have the hysterectomy, and all of these things, that this is going to keep it from coming
Mm-hmm.
back. To recognize, I hate to say because of a freak accident, because I know that's a complication that can happen with radiation, but to have something not so great happen be the reason that you find
Mm-hmm.
this mutation. You couldn't write that out if you even had tried to plan
Mm-mm,
it.
mm-mm, not at all, not at all. So, and like I said, my faith is really what gets me through this. I read, with homeschooling, my two younger children. I say younger, but they're 18, 14, and 11. As the first time they were 9, 5, and not quite 2. My 14-year-old, she had a bunch of books that she had to read this past fall. And I was re-diagnosed in December. It was like December 2nd of 2022. And this was probably in October or September. I read the book, The Hiding Place, Corey Ten Boom.
I
First
read
time
it.
I'd read it, I read it for her because she had to read it, and I wanted to make sure that I knew, how to teach her through that. They praised for the fleas and for the lice that were in the concentration camp. And I thought, how can you be grateful for that? I don't do good with parasites. That's just, see, we all have our thing. That's my thing. But I just thought, wow. And I feel so grateful that God brought that book into my life at that particular time, because then now I can see, I'm grateful for the radiation burn. And so whatever else comes along, I know that there's a plan for that.
That's very powerful. And I think it's powerful for people listening, because I think anybody who has cancer, the biggest fear is late
Mm-hmm.
stage reoccurrent
Mm-hmm.
cancer. to hear somebody that has had that happen and is living that with 3 children still, even though they're older, in the thick of growing children and at important times in their life, it's reassuring for them to know that you can still have hope and joy and feelings and
Mm-hmm.
sadness, of course, and anxiety, but you can still have all of that and be very much living.
Yes. And it's not, I mean, I'm not always this positive. I will tell you that straight. I have my moments, and I'm sad that I may not ever be able to see my grandchildren. And man, that's tough. When I start to think that way, it's really difficult. But again, I know I have to cling to one of my favorite verses is Romans 8:28. All things work together for good, for those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And that's what I cling to, is that no matter what happens, it's for good.
I think that's an incredible outlook. And I really believe that supports your health. I know
Mm-hmm.
that when our spiritual and mental health is in a better place, it can completely affect our physical health as well.
Yeah.
You've accessed our programming now at 2 very separate times, and we at Wonders and Worries say that we support children for the full growth of development. So from really like age 2 to age 18 is our primary focus, but your children have kind of been in that gamut the whole
Mm-hmm.
time. They were literally age 2 to now age 18 and have walked along with you this entire time of your illness, or just in that in-between space of knowing that chronic illness has been a part of
Mm-hmm.
your story and their story. How do you feel like you were able to learn about Wonders and Worries early on, or what led you to connect with the organization the first time
Well,
around?
I want to say this really quick before I forget, but you were saying that my
Yeah.
children have lived with that. My son has never known me well, and that's super
Yeah.
powerful. I mean, he's never really known me before cancer. They say memory starts at around 2 years old, so it was before he was two. But with the Wonders and Worries, I
Yeah.
can't honestly remember how I came to find out about y'all. It may have been through, there's a breast cancer resource center there in Austin.
They're
Yes, it
wonderful.
may
We
have
love
been
them.
through them. But I will tell you that living outside of Austin, it's very difficult to find any kind of support. Wonders and Worries has been so great, especially the first time around. I was going through radiation when I found y'all. I'd already finished chemo. And so I had a little bit more energy where I could actually drive my kids into Austin. But I know Adriana, she actually sometimes would even come to Seton, but she would actually meet me there just because it was just easier for me with
Mhm.
the kids. I remember telling my children when I was first diagnosed, the girls, I thought it would be more for the 5-year-old, but actually it really resonated with the 9-year-old, was that we've been very honest and upfront with them. We haven't sugarcoated anything. I don't know if that comes from me being a nurse or what, but my husband and I decided early on that we're going to be honest with them. And I remember telling them, this isn't something that you can catch. It's not like a cold or a stomach bug. You can't catch it from me. And then I told them that nothing that you did caused mommy to have this. Yeah, I didn't get cancer because you didn't clean your room when you were asked, you know. And it was the 9-year-old that really, I mean, oh, good. And she just cried. That was her big worry. So I feel so grateful that I had said that in front of her, because I was directing it to the 5-year-old. And it was kind of at that moment that I realized that, hey, my kids really need something. They need an outlet other than me and my husband to really ask questions.
I think that we automatically tell ourselves that our older
Mm-hmm.
children, even 9, 10-year-olds, that they're in one stage of development. But when you are in crisis or in trauma or something scary, it's amazing how quickly they kind of fall back into that childlike wonder, that childlike worry, almost that phantasmic
Mm-hmm.
way of
Mm-hmm.
thinking where things that aren't even related can be connected and related. And so if you're listening and you have a child that you think is older, is definitely not wondering those things, you might be surprised to find out they are. And they're just not talking about it because it sounds silly in their head, but then it's something they're very much holding on to. I've had teenagers who I've worked with who have had a mom with breast cancer who thought if they hugged their mom that breast cancer could move onto their
Mm-hmm.
body. And it was just this lack of them, they just don't understand. And it's okay and it's normal because why would
Right.
they understand unless they were born medical doctors or nurses, they wouldn't
Well,
know.
and the thing too with older kids, when you were saying that, a lot of times they think that they should know more than they do because they are older, and so they're ashamed or embarrassed to even ask.
One thing that I struggle with so much now with TikTok
Mm,
and social media and even Googling these kids, and they're trying to take the burden off of their parents by getting their questions answered on their own. But what we find is so often the answers they find
hmm
are not
hmm
correct. Or what they find is triple negative metastatic stage 4
Yep.
cancer, mom's going to
hmm
die. Not not all the other things that factor in, such as catching it early and new development with immunotherapy and all these other things that have come into play because, of course, the articles don't highlight that. That's why it's very important to have that communication. Did you have a communication system or do you now have one with your kids that you kind of find works best for
Oh,
them?
that's a good question. I think at one point with my daughter, my older daughter, I would write in a journal and then put it under her pillow and then allow her to write something back to me and put it under my pillow. That way she could put her fears and worries and questions and not really have to look at me to ask about it. Really and truly, it's just that honesty that we've had just between one another. And I don't know if I did that with the older ones so much so for the cancer, but just her going through puberty, I think is why I did it. Like I said, my memory is it's not great, but
And it's not something that wasn't new. Even though you had your hysterectomy and you were past treatment point at that point, that's still a major surgery
mm,
that comes with, oh, mom's going to the hospital. So even if you say to them, this is not related to that, this is protective, this is us doing this to help keep me safe and healthy, they will automatically go back to a place where mom was in the hospital
yes.
before because they've had this lifelong experience. So even though it was at her puberty or during that time frame, it still fell probably within the window of all
Well,
of
and I
these
was in the hospital
treatments.
so much with the lung issues. And sometimes I would end up going to the hospital in the middle of the night and they would wake up and I wouldn't be there. So there was a lot of traumatic experiences for them, which was why it was so important to me to seek out Wonders and Worries this time around. I know my older daughter, we had tried to see in this past fall, before any of this came up, tried to get her into a psychologist there at the school because she had a lot of anxiety left over from the first time. And she was a senior and just, with tests and different things. And I knew that she needed some skills to be able, she was going off to college, she'll be going off this fall, but she needed the skills to be able to work with that anxiety and try to help her to overcome what she could. And the counselor, she saw her twice and she said, Mom, I helped her more than she helped me. So she's like, I'm not going
That's funny.
back. um and so when this happened, she was very against talking with Wonders and Worries, very against it. And I said, look, just do it for me. Just one time. One time is all I ask. And if you hate it, you don't talk to her again. And she loved it. She said, Mom, this has been so much. Adriana's given me techniques on breathing and how to, when I get stressed, what I need to do. And she got so big breakthroughs with her. My middle daughter is a little more reserved. She's my introvert, so she hasn't been as receptive. But my son, this is his first time. He doesn't remember really a lot of the treatments from
Yeah.
the first time. So I've had to go to the hospital twice this time. The first chemo was really, really brutal. And he was petrified. The girls were like, mom will be home. They, I don't want
I
to
love it.
invalidate their feelings, but in a sense, we've been through this before. It was a familiar road. but to him it wasn't. So this has been really good. And he even came in the other day. Before I get another treatment or scan, my anxiety goes up and I have trouble sleeping. And he came in the other day and sat down on the bed with me and he goes, "Mom, give me your hand." And I was like, "Okay." So I gave him my hand, and he did that where you go up your thumb, you breathe in, and you go down your thumb and you breathe out and you go up. And he taught me. And I knew that was something he
I love
learned
that.
from Wonders and Worries. So that was, as a mama, that was just, I loved it. I love that he, is taking those tools with him.
Well, I have an extra soft spot for teens, especially teens at Wonders and Worries.
Mm-hmm.
That's the group that I lead with our Austin group. And just to see how there is so much power in giving them a space to talk that doesn't feel
Mm-hmm.
forced. And so I love you having that comfort where he can come to you and show you new things. And your oldest thinking about an 18-year-old, especially one that's at an exciting
Oh,
time where she's going to be going away. There's so much worry and stress. I know that I've worked with many seniors, and just the weight of the world they're carrying right now with this guilt of leaving home when there's crisis happening, and wading through what that looks like and feeling guilty about being excited about there's something new. There's just so much there. So I'm so glad that you were able to connect with her and that it's
and so
been
you really
supportive
just
for
touched
her
my,
as
I'm
well.
getting teary eyed now because that was the hardest thing for me to do, was to tell her that it had come back, because she had been applying to colleges and because we were waiting on applications and scholarships. And, she was having, she had prom and she had all these big, exciting moments. And I just thought, man, this stinks for her. So, that was tough. I will say though that especially the first time around, and I'm not sure, I don't really know yet how it'll play out this time, but the first time around, my children got to witness. I mean, they saw people who brought us food. They saw people who visited me in the hospital. We had a lady from our church who would come and get my dirty laundry and wash it and bring it back clean and folded. And I mean, you can't teach that. I mean, yeah. So,
And the empathy and the heart for service that your children, while a horrible experience, but have gained from this. I just think about the kindness in the world that they now
yes.
have seen
Mm-hmm.
firsthand on their own family, and what that kindness
Yes.
does to your spirit and
Yes,
who you are as a
absolutely.
person.
I,
Yes.
I really think that it's made them who they are, and, something else to be grateful for. And my daughter, my oldest one, she wants to go into medicine.
You might be looking at your 3 rounds of
Yep.
oncologists coming up, but
So,
they're gonna do their best to find a cure,
absolutely.
and I laugh because so many of our kids that have diagnoses early in their childhood and have grown up around it, barfing and mom taking a nap or dad taking a nap, none of that's
Hmm.
out of their norm. And so they're the best people to have in times of crisis, because if a friend is going to throw up on a bus, that's
Hmm.
who you want to be sitting next to, because they're still going to be okay with
That's
you
right. That's right.
afterwards and part of their story for a while. I know we're ping-ponging around a little bit, but looking kind of when your kids were small, I know one you weren't homeschooling yet, but
I
were the
I was
girls
homeschooling the
homeschooled at that
girls.
time
Yes.
when you were?
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't even know how you were able to do that. I
Well,
think about, I have 4 children, and the pandemic, when they were home and I was homeschooling them, I feel like I couldn't even keep my head on straight. And I can't imagine doing that with chemo and aggressive chemo
well,
and
I will
aggressive
tell you
radiation.
that when after when I started having so much trouble with my lungs, we did put them in a little school for, well, my older one, she stayed, so she'll be graduating from a little private school in town, but because she was just thriving. And my other one I took out because she just wasn't, it just wasn't. She's doing much better here with me and my son, just their personalities. Through the chemo, I did still homeschool them. I don't know if I did a great job, but so they did go, and there was lessons and grace even in that. But with with the small children, I will tell you that it can feel very isolating. There seems to be, and it's, especially if you're not in a big city center, like, like I'm not in San Marcos, I'm not in a big city center. Um, I had found a support group in Kyle at the hospital there, but no one was my age. No one had small children. They would sit there, and I've learned to hate the word at least. At least you're young and you can handle the treatments. Well, yeah, but I have small kids, and I want to tell them at least you can take a nap. I mean, it's just, I can't.
Yes. At least
Yes,
you're not
yes.
momming right
And
now.
so, I mean,
Yes.
I had the responsibility for three young humans. I mean, they depended on me for everything. I look back now and think, how did I do that? But I think as a mom, you just do. I mean, you just do. Because you don't think about yourself. You think about them. I think that's really what kept me going. And the crazier thing is, and I don't know if I don't think you and I have even discussed this, but about a year before I was diagnosed, my husband came home. So my son was probably a year old. I was still nursing him. And he comes home and says, "You need to get out of the house." And I was thinking, oh, great. Spa days once a month, hey, this great guy. He goes, "I enrolled you in college." I thought, "You did what?" Because
What?
I'm an LVN, and he thought, well, I could go at night, or online and get a bachelor's degree, and then when the kids got older, I could get my bachelor's in nursing, do an accelerated program. I guess that was his retirement plan. I have no idea. But 2 semesters in, I was diagnosed. So not only was I homeschooling, and I had part-time jobs, and now I was a full-time student, and as I didn't quit. I stayed with it because I wanted to show my children that no matter what life threw at you, as long as you persevered, you could, with faith and family, and you can do anything that you set your mind to. I graduated a semester later than, maybe a year later than what my plan had been, but I never gave up. There was a lot of tears. I wanted to give up a lot of times, but my husband pushed me, and I am forever grateful because that kept my mind off the cancer. It kept my mind off, it
Oh my
gave me
word.
people would say, "Oh, let me take this off your plate. Let me help you." And a lot of times it'd be like, "No, because I need this purpose. I need this purpose." So my favorite picture is I'm looking at it right now, me in my graduation cap and gown with my three children, in front of me.
That was your carrot that was dangled to keep you running.
Yeah.
Now, that's probably what we call at Wonders and Worries a totem. So we talk to kids about this concept of totems and how you have something that is a visual representation to you. Maybe it's a phrase or a word or even a song, but something that is your source of power. Have you felt that that picture alone is enough in this new chapter of illness to be able to kind of be like, I've done this. Look what I did. I can do this again.
I have a lot of peace about this new chapter. I don't want to give a false pretense, and because it's not always like this. I mean, like I said before, I have a lot of sadness that I may never meet my grandchildren. I mean, that just or you see my daughters get married. I mean, it's rough as I tear up now, but I do have a lot of peace, and I see that picture, and I see that I can do anything with God and with my family, and with my loved ones. It gives me more peace than it does anything else, I think.
Do your girls and your son, do they ask you about what happens if, or do they not go there with
They know. I mean, they know what this means. They know that it's a blessing that we found it early. They know that I'll be living with this for however much longer I'm going to be here. I know with my 18-year-old, there is a very beloved science teacher. She was not as fortunate as me. She had a cough. She had COVID. She had a cough that wouldn't go away, and it was her recurrence. And it's in her lungs.
you?
I know one day I will be like that. That on my 18-year-old, that's extremely difficult. She, has lots of breakdowns, lots of what she calls PTSD, But,
Of course.
I mean, they know my son will get upset and he'll come in and we'll have to talk with him. And there's a little bit of anger sometimes with him that I don't know if it's his age, because he's stepping into puberty, or if it's the diagnosis, or maybe a combo of both. I'm not real sure. So that's another reason I'm grateful for Wonders and Worries, is that he's got some kind of outlet, and he's getting tools that, even if he doesn't want to express it to me. Yeah, so I mean, they know.
I had a mom on here once as my guest, and I'm going to bring it back up because I love the way that she said it. And she said, it's okay if your kids see you super mad and upset and scream and cry. They just have to see you get back up. And I think that alone is such a gift that you have given your children. Is we're not going to hide the truth from you. We're going to have these honest and hard conversations. You're going to see me bald with my ducky fuzz with no hair, but you're also going to see this growth coming back out. And you're going to see me doing things differently than I was doing before, and knowing that this all is part of the progress.
Yeah,
and fighting.
Absolutely.
For any mom that is maybe new to her diagnosis or finds herself supporting her kids, and do you have any words for her about what you recommend or what's worked well, or any encouragement?
You were talking about my hair, and if there are moms with young kids, I mean, sometimes it's just survival. I mean, sometimes you just feel like you're just surviving. I still get a lot of accolades when I tell people this, and it's not anything special that I did. It's absolutely survival mode. I would let the kids color on my bald head with washable markers. And they're like, "Oh, that's so creative. How neat to not make them scared." I'm like, "No, I was so tired. I didn't, I could, there was nothing else I could do but sit there and let them color on my head. I wasn't thinking of anything else, but just small things like that. I would be laying in bed, and I would have a box of toys that my son could only play with when he came to sit in bed with me. And so he would come and get in the bed and play with his toys while I would put my hand on him because I'd be so afraid that I'd fall asleep. And, I mean, him being 2, you just do what you do to survive.
And I know on every day, it may not feel like this for you, but listening, you're doing more than surviving. You are.
Oh, thank you. It does not feel like that, but thank you. I think a lot of times, especially moms, society tells us that we're supposed to do it all. We're supposed to work, and we're supposed to come home and provide. And by providing, I mean like dinner and the housework and all. We're supposed to just be able to and be Pinterest ready. Everything you see on Pinterest, right?
As we're in my messy closet right now.
Yes. And man, just throw that out the window. I mean, we were told our homeschool group was a great support for us both times, last time and this time. The first time they wanted to gift us a used freezer for our garage, and they stocked it with freezer food for us. Stuff that I could just warm up for the kids. My husband didn't want to take it, and another dad approached him and said, "Look, by you not accepting this, you are cheating us out of a blessing."
What a sweet way to phrase it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I would say would be, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to accept help, because there's a lot of people who want to help you, to bless you, and in turn, they are blessed by that. So that would be my best advice. That and honesty and just hope and love and
find your support. That's a huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. Please subscribe and continue to check back as our content is ever evolving. For questions or specific content-related requests, please send an email to podcast@wondersandworries.org.